Irish Sea border written across the boat. And indeed, sadly, an Irish tricolour, the flag of the country that I come from. Not a very nice gesture, and indeed some people might take offence. I'm not sure Leo would. I think Leo would be very pleased that they were able to recognise him and know who he was. But the important thing to always remember in things like this, that in all these acts, it was an image that was burned, and an idea that was burned, and not a person. Because we think back in time when people were burned, real people were burned, as an act of political violence, or in years and years gone by, when women were burned because they were considered a witch, which really was cover for they were too intelligent for the lads that were around them. So, when somebody puts something like a photo or whatever, or an image, because it is an image, it might even be described as, well, fashionably we used to use this term in the 60s, agitprop, or street theatre. And this was repeated last week, to some extent, by the musical group called Nicap in West Belfast, during Féile an Phobal, which is the West Belfast Festival. Indeed, I was up there on Wednesday to hear Fergus Whelan from the Dublin Unitarian Church speak in St. Mary's College on Molesworth, who was one of those great Enlightenment thinkers, and Fergus spoke excellently on him and Francis Hutcheson and others from the Enlightenment. And of course, Francis Hutcheson was born in Saintfield. Now, I don't want to talk too much about Fergus, but getting back to Nicap, they were asked why they put certain murals on walls, why they sing songs or somewhat pejorative essentially in that. And their answer was, because it annoys the right people that they want to annoy. Now, I actually remember asking some lads that I was invited to speak to who actually build the bonfires, and I said to them, why do you put flags and images on the bonfires? And they said, because it annoys the Alliance Party. Now, they were quite specific about that. So I thought, yeah, okay, I can see where you're coming from. And they said, they burn the tricolour because it might annoy people that they feel should be annoyed. Anyway, I wasn't too put out by it. I understood the logic and the rationale in what they were trying to say to me. Because in a way, sometimes it's not the burning we disagree with, not the tearing up, but the particular person's image who was burned or torn up. Because Sinead O'Connor tore up a picture of the Pope. Now I'm going to ask you, this could be a pointless question, if you watch Pointless. What Pope did Sinead tear up? Anybody? Well done, Isabella. Who said that? Well done, Alan. Yeah, it was John Paul II, the first Polish Pope. So I imagine Sinead annoyed the whole of Poland by that act. And of course, Sinead said she was inspired by Bob Geldof to tear up a picture of the Pope. Because Geldof tore up a picture of John Travolta and Olivia Newton-John, not quite the same category as Pope John Paul II. And Bob did this when the Rats, the Boomtown Rats, had just knocked the duo from Greece off the charts with Rat Trap in 1978. And that's what Sinead felt she was imitating, only Sinead went one step further. Sinead repeated this stunt in 1992 shredding Pope John Paul II on the American program Saturday Night Live. Now, there's a difficulty in this for me because I read the poem about Dún Laoghaire, written by Sinead's brother Joe O'Connor in 2010, because both Sinead and Bob come from Dún Laoghaire, and both of them lived a few streets away from where I live. And I was trying to work out, is there a tradition from Dún Laoghaire of turning images up in our hometown? And should we be invited up to Loigashel next year? Pretty well, Sinead sadly is no longer with us, but Bob and myself are. And I thought to myself, I'm feeling a bit inadequate. Should I tear up a picture of someone and seek a bit of publicity about it? But should I tear up a picture of somebody that won't cause me any damage or won't endanger me? Because there's a risk factor in turning up images of certain people. Their fans or their followers may come at you. And who could I tear up which would not give offence? What I'm saying is, who could I tear up, or what image could I tear up that wouldn't have a fatwa put on my head? Because I'm not that brave. So I thought about this, and I thought, how do I continue this great Dún Laoghaire tradition, which is to tear pictures of people up? And I thought, maybe if I tore up an image of Paddington Bear, would that be okay?
Oh, no.
No, it's indeed not to tear up an image of Paddington Bear. Right, okay, Paddington Bear goes free. What about Putin?
Yes.
Yeah. But you see, I can't even do that. I'm hopeless. And you can see how I'm losing the knack of the Dún Laoghaire tradition of tearing a picture of someone. Bill Macmillan, because you'll see where I'm going with this, Bill Macmillan, who I often mention here, was our minister in Dunmurry non-subscribing Presbyterian Church. And Bill was one of the people that inspired me to go into ministry. And he always told a great story about a minister, a non-subscribing minister, who was in a pulpit like this, with a window right close to him. And when he got up, he picked up the Bible. I don't have a Bible here, but he picked up, pretend this is the Bible. And he picked up the Bible, and he said, "You do not need this." And Bill said he heroically opened the window and threw the Bible out the window. And because he was condemning his people for worshipping a book. And I asked Bill, what happened after that? He said the congregation threw him out the window. So I'm not even going to try that, even though it's about the Bible. You might think of it. In February 2023, the Swedish police authority refused permission for an association and a private person associated with this association who wanted to burn the Quran outside the Turkish and Iraqi embassies in Stockholm. Now, I can see why the Swedish police would say, we think it would be a bad idea. But in June 2023, the refusal was overturned by the Court of Appeal in Stockholm. And on the 28th of June, an Iraqi man, a refugee, ripped out and set fire to pages of the Quran outside a Stockholm mosque. And he repeated this act, of course, on various occasions. And of course, the repercussions were not for him, but the Iraqis then decided they would burn down the Swedish embassy. See, that's the problem when you decide to tear up a picture or burn a book, somebody might do something to you. But in this case, not him. He said, tell you what, we burned down the Swedish embassy, which fortunately they weren't able to do, the embassy in Baghdad. Mind you, having said all that, there is a common practice in both Iraq and Iran where the American flag is burned. And some Americans get really annoyed about this, about their flag being burned, because they consider, maybe not the Bible always, maybe not the Quran, maybe not the Torah, but many Americans consider the flag is sacred in the US of A. I remember when I was a trade union official and I was at an event in New York that I was asked to speak to, where there were about 6,000 members of trade unions, and the American flag was flying, and all the fellows on the union lads on the top platform turned to the American flag, and they put their hand on the heart and sang the anthem facing the flag, because the flag is regarded as sacred in America. Sacred, and I'll talk a little bit about that later on. And when we say something is sacred, do we automatically believe it to be holy, to have a special connection with God? Would you know, many times here I talk about the sacred secular. And by that I mean, to give you an example, I'm talking about the cenotaph at the side of City Hall. It's not a religious monument. It's a secular monument to all those who died in the 2 world wars, but yet it's regarded as sacred. And all the parades, and including Pride and everything, when they go by that, the chanting ceases. People go quiet as they go by the cenotaph. So everybody, whether you're religious, whether you're secular, you treat it as having some sort of sacredness. Other people can explain that better than me, what we mean by the sacred secular. How something can be sacred, not necessarily attached to the concept of God, not necessarily be religious, can be non-religious, and yet it is sacred. And by the way, this was a difficulty for Americans condemning the Iraqis and the Iranians for burning the American flag, because the burning of the American flag in America is protected by the First Amendment. The courts upheld, it went up to the Supreme Court, that the burning of the flag constitutes a form of symbolic speech. Symbolic speech consists of non-verbal, non-written forms of communication. So if you're not making a passionate speech about the working class, passionate speech like that chap Ryan in the centre of Belfast who seemed to annoy quite a lot of people, or when then you can symbolically do something that gets your message across. So burning the American flag in America is protected by the First Amendment under the interpretation of symbolic speech. So if we all lived in America, the guys putting Leo on the bonfire would be protected by the First Amendment, that it is symbolic speech. Now, there's a woman who lives in London called Miriam Namenzi. She comes from Iran, and she was expelled or fled from Iran because she was a member of the Iranian Communist Party. So you can see why she would not be too popular in present-day theocratic Iran. And she has decided that the 22nd of August should be Apostasy Day. This is a day when we agree that ideas are not sacred. Human beings are sacred. Ideas are not sacred, but human beings are sacred. So what Miriam is saying is, the Bible is not sacred, it's a book. The Quran is not sacred, it's a book. The Torah, all famous religious books are not sacred. That people are sacred. We shouldn't be torturing, killing, depriving our fellow human beings, because they're sacred, and we shouldn't put books ahead of them. Now, I'm a big fan of Miriam, but there's one little problem even in what she says. Because the church that I once belonged to, the Catholic Church, would agree with her that they might actually go further. Now, they might say, no, the books are sacred and the people are sacred. They might cover both. I don't know. I'd have to ask a Catholic theologian. But they would declare that humans are sacred. But they would say all human life is sacred. So then you have to start qualifying by what you mean by that. Because the Catholic Church firmly insists that from the moment of conception, human life is sacred. Because from the moment of conception, life was created in the image and likeness of God. I disagree with the Catholic Church on that, but then I'm beginning to descend from the idealistic view that all human life is sacred. And I've debated with many Catholic priests on this in a brotherly fashion. But I think in a poetic sense, we believe nothing surpasses the greatness or dignity of a human person, and that we do aspire to treat each other with kindness and love, and in a sense, as being sacred. But it is interesting here today, you didn't want me to tear up a picture of an imaginary bear, but it was okay to tear up an image of a human being. Poor old Putin. Interesting. While it may be rude or offensive to burn an image, or indeed a sacred text, or why it may be rude to put somebody's flag up on a bonfire, or tear up someone's flag in the streets and burn it, and it may give offense, we should always remember that as long as we're not burning each other, then we're going in the right direction. Amen.